With 3 weeks left to go in the regular season, we have a lot of key games. Almost every single one of them has playoff implications. We're going to talk about all of them coming up now on the Gridiron Central Preview Show. Welcome to the show. As always, I'm joined by Matt Davis, the voice of high school football for 95.7 The Ridge. Fist bump, boom. Bigger explosion this week. As the weeks go on, the explosions get bigger and bigger, as do the games. Let's jump right into this. Region 5 AAA, a very big game to start off with. Cartersville undefeated, ranked number 2 in the state. Adairsville coming into this really needing, if they can beat Cartersville, to get back in the possibility of grabbing the number 2 seed. Matt, can the Tigers pull the upset?
Well, when you look at Cartersville's schedule, so far they've beaten Darlington, Cass, Rockmart, North Murray, Coahuila Creek, LFO, and Gordon Central. They're undefeated, as you mentioned, 7-0 overall, 4-0 in the region. But when you look at that schedule in terms of a AAA team, you don't really see that win that really sticks out to you as that is a really solid win. But with that said, I still think Cartersville is an extremely good team, and they're going to get those wins when they get to the playoffs, more or less. I think Adairsville's a really good team. They're 5-2, 3-1 in the region. They had close losses to Cass and Ringgold, which are 2 of the other good teams out of that region. But I don't think they're quite on the level that Cartersville's at this point. You got to remember, last year Cartersville, they were just inches away, more or less, from making it to the finals as they played against Buford and played them a really tough game. So even though they haven't really played a tough schedule this year, they are a tough football team. They're averaging 50 points a game, meanwhile only giving up about 7. I think the clear-cut choice in this game is Cartersville. Last year I thought this game would be close. It was anything but. Cartersville won that game 45-3. So I think that Adairsville may pull a little bit closer this year. I don't think it'll be quite that much of a blowout. But at the end of the day, I still think Cartersville wins by about 20.
You know, I'm going to agree with you on this one. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Cartersville wins by more than that. Adairsville's not a bad team. I think they're the solid number 3 out of this region, having lost to Ringgold earlier. Cass actually is in 4A, not AAA, so that actually wasn't a region loss for them. We'll talk about Cass and Cedartown here in just a minute. Cartersville's a very good football team. Adairsville's not a half-bad football team at all. I see the Hurricanes winning this one, but again, it would not surprise me if Adairsville kept it close for at least a half. Moving to Region 7 AA now, Armurchie travels to play Calhoun. And sing along with me, Calhoun, was it 12 years without losing a region game? I'm not so sure. Have they even been scored on in region play this year?
Well, they've pitched 4 shutouts, Ridgeland, Dade, Pepperell, Murray County, and then they only gave up 2 points to Dalton. So they've done quite a good job. I guess they have, because it seems like Coosa scored against them.
Okay, you're right. Coosa did score against them. So that being said, Armurchie, very young team going to play at Calhoun. Tough place to play. I think Armurchie's a lot better as the season has progressed. They're still not good enough to beat Calhoun. Calhoun wins. Matt?
You know, Armurchie, one of the things that I've noticed about this team is it seems like they're good at creating opportunity, not good at capitalizing on the opportunity they created. Like, for instance, last week there was a situation in the game where there was a bad snap. The punter had to fall on the ball for Dade County. It was on the 15-yard line in Dade County territory, and then there were no points scored for Armurchie. In those situations, you got to get the points.
Definitely.
And it's, when I've seen them play a few times this year, it's been the same story over and over again. They're a hard-nosed team. They play hard. They do some good things on defense. They get some drives going, but they can't finish drives. And so when you're in that situation, it's going to be hard to win football games.
Certainly.
You got to score to win. It's one of the most basic things of football, obviously. So I'm going with Calhoun in this game. Calhoun, they score points. They're averaging about 36 a game. Meanwhile, they're only giving up about 8. I would just go ahead and circle Calhoun the rest of the way.
Gotcha. Moving on, Cedartown at Cass. Bulldogs undefeated so far this season. Cass has a pretty good record as well. You know, in all honesty, you know, a lot of teams, what they've started to do against the Bulldogs is they've tried to play ball control, try to keep Nick Chubb on the field as a linebacker, keep him off the field as a running back. He had over 300 yards the last game he played. Of course, Cedartown had a bye week last week. Very interesting game, especially for region implications here, to possibly get to the region championship game in their region in 4A. Matt, what do you think?
You know, in my opinion, and I haven't had the opportunity to see either one of these teams play, I read the newspaper articles and keep up with it. And sometimes when that's the only thing you have, it's kind of hard to really envision that matchup in your mind. But just looking at the things on paper that I see, it looks like Cass's defense is pretty porous. They're giving up about 28 points a game. Well, if they're giving up that amount to the teams that they've played so far, I would imagine Cedartown should have a field day. And I think that, you know, looking at how many points Cedartown's been able to score, you know, putting it on the back of Chubb more or less with a little bit more dimension as we described this season, they're averaging 42 points a game. I don't see any reason why they won't reach their average and maybe even surpass it in this game. So I think Cedartown's going to win this one by a couple of touchdowns.
I agree that Cedartown's going to win, but I think it's going to be closer than that. I think Cedartown's defense has given up a lot of points as well. Even their last couple of games, the other team had chances to possibly pull closer. Cedartown had to win them all late. Again, Nick Chubb's going to get his yards. If Cass can hold him under 180 yards, they have a chance to win this. I don't think they do. Cedartown wins. Moving on, Chattooga at Pepperell, a game that still has playoff implications, although both of these teams probably upset they didn't get wins last week. Both of them, Chattooga lost to Coosa, Pepperell lost to Model. Pepperell is now, you know, I think we mentioned this before, they'll have their first losing season since 2003. That being said, they've lost against some good teams. They can still reach the playoffs. Matt, can the Pepperell Dragons win at home against the Indians?
I think they can win at home against the Indians. This game's been really interesting the last couple of years. It was a one-score game last year, high-scoring game. The year before that, if memory serves me correctly, it was a 2-overtime loss for the Chattooga Indians. They see their chance and they want to take it, but they're going to have to do it on the road. And Pepperell can be a really hard place to play. So, you know, we'll have to see how it goes in this game. Chattooga, when you look at their situation, they're 2-2 in the region. And they have remaining after this game Dade County, which is a team I think they can hang with. That'll be an interesting game. Then they have Calhoun, and I just don't think there's any way Chattooga is going to be able to pull off the upset victory in that game. So the reason I bring that up is I think that if Chattooga wins this game, they're going to find their way into the playoffs, perhaps. Yeah. They're going to have to get past Dade. But at the same time, that gives them their best shot. And so I think there's a lot of motivation there. The one thing that I want to mention, you know, Pepperell's Achilles heel this year has been scoring. They have not been able to score. I mean, just look at last week against Model. Model pitched the shutout. And, you know, you got to score. And they've just not been able to do it. On the other hand, Chattooga, they're scoring about 20 points a game. They're a really exciting young team. So after much deliberation on this one, I'm circling Chattooga. I wouldn't be surprised either way, honestly. It was a coin flipper, but I just give a slight edge to Chattooga in this year.
You know, and this is a very interesting game for me. I've seen Pepperell a couple of times this year. Was there last week against Model, and the key in that game, in all honesty, was special teams. Pepperell had the kickoff return for a touchdown, called back on the holding penalty, and yes, I do think it was a holding penalty. But the other thing about it is Model had 2, maybe 3 punts pinning Pepperell deep. Pepperell only got in the red zone one time all night. Then they had a penalty to take them back out of it. Were not able to get down there. Pepperell was having to look at drives where they were going to have to go 95 yards and 90 yards, and they just could not sustain those drives. I look at these two teams. Pepperell and Chattooga probably are about even on special teams. I don't think either of them are particularly amazing at it. Passing games, you know, again, neither of these teams have phenomenal passing games. I think both of them have pretty good defenses. And then running game, I think Chattooga's might be a little bit better than Pepperell's, but I think Pepperell's defense may be a little bit better suited to stop the running game. It's at Pepperell. Excuse me on that one. You know, it's tough. Because
you're still thinking about this, aren't you?
My problem is I'm not. You know, I've been going back and forth. I can make a good case for either of these teams winning. And in this case, what I'm going to do? He says Chattooga. I went with Pepperell over Model last week. I still don't think that was a bad pick. Hey, guess what? Model won. I was wrong. Hey, won the first time, won't be the last. It's at Pepperell. Pepperell is mad. You don't want to play the Dragons when they're mad in Lindale. Pepperell wins. It's going to be a close one. It should be a very interesting game. One last game to talk about before we go to the commercial break, and it could be the game of the week in Region 7 AA, and that is Model at Coosa. Model has now guaranteed themselves their second consecutive winning season since the first time since like the 80s.
Yeah.
Model is undefeated in region play. They're 4-0 right now. Coosa, beating Chattooga last week, they're right back in that playoff race. The winner of this game, in my opinion, probably may have the inside track at that number 2 spot. If Model wins this game, it sets up a great game later on against Calhoun. I don't know if Model can beat Calhoun or not, but it would be awfully interesting if Model was undefeated in the region when they played Calhoun. That being said, close game. It's at Coosa. Matt, who do you think?
This one was another one of those ones like the Pepperell-Chattooga game that I really had to think about before I circled the winner of this game. Model 6-1, 4-0 in the region. Coosa 4-3, 2-2. Both teams have a lot to play for. I see a lot of similarities in these teams. When you look at the averages in terms of points scored, they're almost identical. I believe that Model's scoring about 25 points a game. Meanwhile, Coosa about 26. The defense, I think, has been a little bit better for Model. They're only giving up 12, and thanks in part a lot to last week's shutout of Pepperell. And then Coosa, meanwhile, giving up about 19 points. Looking at Model this year, they have a few key wins. They beat Christian Heritage. They beat Sonoraville, and both those two teams I mentioned, not in their region, but have proven to be better teams than maybe we thought going in, particularly Christian Heritage. They've had an outstanding season. They gave Darlington all they can handle a couple of weeks ago. That really got my attention. And then, of course, even though Model beat a Pepperell team that was down coming into the game, that's still a huge win because you got to overcome a lot of mental things to get out there on the field and perform and get a win in that situation. So from that standpoint, I think Model has kind of turned a corner. The thing they need to avoid coming into this game, which I don't think is going to be a problem because the coaching staff, has been addressing this all week, don't get a big head. Don't come into this game overly confident because Coosa's a hard-nosed team. They can score. They've got a young quarterback, but he can throw the ball. And if you get too overconfident and complacent in this game, they're going to burn you. But I'm going to go with Model. I think that they're a more complete team right now than we've seen them in a while, and I think they're going to find a way to beat Coosa.
Okay. Let's talk about those scoring averages real quick. Remember, Coosa's played Calhoun, Pepperell, and Dade. Model has played has only played Pepperell out of those 3 teams. So that takes into account the scoring averages. Look, I've seen Model play. Here's the wash in this game. Special teams, you got to give the edge to Coosa because they get touchbacks on their kickoffs. Their field goal kicker is more accurate than Model's. They both can kick the ball from about the 50-yard line. That's about even. Coosa has a better passing game than Model does. I believe Coosa's defense is slightly better than Model's as well. Maybe a wash, I don't know. It comes down to me, the passing game for Coosa, but the biggest question mark is who makes the most turnovers.
Absolutely.
Model had 2 against Pepperell. Pepperell fans will argue there should have been a third, a fumble that was called not a fumble late in the game. I don't know. My video footage, I'm not going to go there, but yeah, it could have been called either way. Coosa had 5 turnovers against Pepperell. That cost them the ball game. Last year in this game, Coosa had a lot of turnovers. Last year, I picked Coosa to win this game. It's at Coosa this year, and Model fans are probably going to hate me because I'm picking against them for the second week in a row. Coosa's going to win this game because they're going to commit fewer turnovers. I think they have a slightly better offense. They're going to score more points. That being said, I think it's a toss-up. Remember, Model did have 2 turnovers last week, almost a third. So it comes down to mistakes. That's what it comes down to me. That, and I think there's going to be a significant difference in starting field position on kickoffs because Model's going to be starting at the 20 just about every time. Coosa will probably be starting a little bit further because Model can't get the touchbacks. That's what I'm saying. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a great game. I think you're going to be there.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be there. We're going to be covering this thing like crazy. I think it's a great game. Coosa wins is what I say. You said Model?
Yeah, I say Model, but there again, for me, it's a coin flick.
Gotcha.
I really think these teams match up in a way that creates a lot of excitement. And just to give you an example, I posted a little advertisement about that being our game of the week on our Facebook page, and it got more shares than anything we posted in a long time. And the only reason I bring that up is just because it just shows you how excited people are about this game.
Definitely.
And for me, that makes it so much fun to be able to go out there and see what kind of atmosphere these 2 teams' crowds are going to create. And so, yeah, you give a little edge to Coosa in terms of home field advantage. Model's fans are coming to the game. So it's going to be loud, it's going to be exciting, and honestly, I can't wait. I'm probably as excited about this game as any game we've seen this year.
Let me say something secondary about that. Not impressed at all by Models fans. I was there against Pepperell last week. Pepperell's fans were louder than Model fans. Sorry, Model fans. First time you beat that team in like 23, 26 years, they were sitting on their rear ends the majority of the time. The PA announcer had to ask them to get up out of their seats to cheer. Anybody who was at the game heard the same thing I did, so I don't give any credence to the fans there at all. I think that, in all honesty, that's that. Like I said, we'll see who's right, we'll see who's wrong. If Models fans show up and cheer, that could be different, but they've actually got to get off their rear end and get up and cheer for that to happen. After the commercial break, we have 6 more key games to talk about.
Begin your future at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. We offer degrees, diplomas, and certificates in over 200 programs of study. Choose a career in business, health, industrial, or public service. With the flexibility of day, evening, and online classes at any of our 5 campus locations, getting your education at GNTC has never been more convenient. There are many financial aid options available, including student loans. Apply now. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your college, your town, your future.
Welcome back to the show. We move to Region 6A, Sub-Region A, as Mount Zion travels to play Darlington. The Tigers have been on the road the last 2 weeks, 2 big road wins this week against Mount Zion. We'll see. Darlington still holds the #1 ranking in the Class A private school power football rankings. Darlington knows if they win out, they'll be in phenomenal shape for the playoffs. Matt, what do you think about the game?
We'll have to see. I mean, it was interesting last year because Mount Zion upset Tryon and Darlington last year, which nobody, I think, saw that coming. Could that happen again this year? I really don't think so. I think Darlington is quite on a roll right now. The only loss they have this year was against Cartersville, AAA powerhouse. Otherwise, they've done an extremely good job. They had a close call against Christian Heritage, but otherwise, they've been pretty strong. So I think they're going to go into this game, they're going to pick up the win, and it's not going to be that difficult for them to do it.
I'm going to agree with you on that one. I think Darlington knows, and talking to Coach Tommy Atha, he knows as well. He's trying to keep these guys grounded. He's trying to keep the team level. I say, don't worry about the power rankings. Win your games. Everything else will take care of itself. He's right. I think Darlington wins this game one step closer to playing for the Region 6A title. Moving on to Region 5 AAA, a game that actually has playoff implications, but not for the team I would have considered at the beginning of the season. Gordon Central at Sonoraville. If you told me at the beginning of the season this game would have playoff implications, I would have assumed it would have been for the Warriors, not the Phoenix. The Phoenix actually have a decent region record. Gordon Central has not won a game. If Sonoraville can win this game, they're still setting themselves up quite well to be the #4 seed out of Region 5 AAA. The Phoenix have never been to the playoffs. Matt, do they get the win against the Warriors?
Oh, I absolutely think so. Gordon Central, the only win that they have this year was against Coahulla Creek. Well, looking at, did I
They
mess
lost.
that up?
They haven't won.
What's that? They haven't won a single game?
They haven't
That's
won a
right.
single game this year.
Oh, my goodness. I totally just whiffed that one. That's right. Murray County beat them.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. I thought Gordon Central beat Coahulla Creek.
They're winless.
Wow. I don't know.
Revelation time on Gridiron Central.
I swear it did. I looked it up online today and it said they beat Coahulla Creek. But anyway, I'm incorrect. Sonoraville is going to win this game. They still have Cartersville left on their schedule. If they get caught looking ahead of that, they're still going to win the game. They're a better football team. They've got LFO at the end of the year. Sonoraville, I think, is going to the playoffs.
I think the Phoenix have, Gordon Central's getting better. They've had some key injuries that hurt them. Sonoraville, with the Phoenix, I think they're going to get the win. Nice county win there. Also, one step closer to possibly reaching the playoffs for the first time, football playoffs for the first time in school history. Moving on, another Region 6A game that is extremely important, especially for playoff possibilities. Tryon travels to play Gordon Lee. The Bulldogs have had a couple of tough losses. Gordon Lee has taken a couple of tough losses. I'm going to go ahead and jump on. I think the Bulldogs win this game. Gordon Lee's not a bad team, but I think they're a marginal playoff team. I think Tryon is a middle-of-the-pack playoff team that could make some noise in the playoffs. Matt, what do you think?
I agree with you 100%. Look at what's happened to Gordon Lee their last 3 games. They've gotten shut out. They haven't been able to produce any offense, and that's been kind of the case most of the season long. It's just been having a hard time getting into the end zone. Meanwhile, Tryon, they've stumbled a couple of times this year, but overall their offense has been producing. They're scoring about 30 points a game, meanwhile giving up only 18. The only thing that would concern me for Tryon is when you look at their schedule, they don't really have any marquee wins. When you look at the teams that they've beaten, they're teams that you feel like, yeah, they should have beaten these teams.
Yeah.
So that really stuck out to me when I was looking at this matchup. They lost to Darlington, Mount Perrin. Those are 2 really good teams. I still think that Tryon's going to be a bit better than Gordon Lee in this game.
Gotcha. Moving on to Region 5, 5A, a huge win for Rome last week against East Paulding means the Rome Wolves, while they do not control their destiny, if they can win their next 3 region games and East Paulding drops a game or 2, the Wolves can sneak into that number 4 playoff spot. They're at Lithia Springs. Lithia Springs is having a tough year as long as the Wolves stay focused. And Coach Franco Perkins a couple of weeks ago said he had to look at the last 4 games of the season as all being playoff games just to make the playoffs. Rome does that. If Rome plays like they did against East Paulding, they win. I think they do. They get the road win. Matt, do you agree?
I agree. Lithia Springs has really struggled. They're only producing about 8 points on average a game, giving up 36. Still, I remain. The thing that Rome's had the biggest trouble with this year has been defense. They're giving up too many points. And you hope that going down the stretch here that doesn't, translate to a team upsetting them somehow, some way. I don't think you got to be worried about that this week. I think Rome is going to win this game by 21 at least.
If you're looking for a very dangerous game for Rome, I think the Villa Rica game might be the one on the schedule that might be the most dangerous. Villa Rica is not a bad football team. This week it's not Lithia Springs. I'm not worried. Rome wins. Douglas at Rockmart. Yellow Jackets last week got rolled by Central Carrollton again. A lot of mistakes in that game. Matt, what do you think?
There's not much to say about this game. Douglas has really struggled this year. Rockmart hasn't been a whole lot to write home about. They've only got the 2 wins. One was over Coosa in just a crazy sloppy game, and then the other win was against Haralson County, which Haralson County is a team that's really, really struggled this year. But I'm still going to give the edge to Rockmart. Douglas, I think, has got more struggles, and so I'm going to say that the Yellow Jackets pick up the win.
And the last time I think it was a Haralson County game, I said Haralson County beat Rockmart. I was dead wrong, very bad on that one. So this time I'm going to go with the Yellow Jackets. Again, I think Rockmart's getting better. Rockmart has got to get away from penalties, turnovers, and costly mistakes. If they can do that, they might do well. The remainder of the schedule, I think they do beat Douglas. One last game to talk about. Unity Christian on the road at Young American Christian. Talking to Joe Curtis, this is a game that he really thinks the Lions have a good chance at winning. Of course, the Lions have already reached the ICSGA playoffs. After this week, they'll have a bye week and then go to the playoffs. I think the Lions get the win here. They got the win against Griffin Christian last week, although not as big a win as I think Unity wanted. I think it was 18-8 if I remember correctly. I say Unity wins. Matt, what do you think?
I agree with you on this one. One of the strong points we talked about for Unity going into the year was offense. Now, they've not produced like we've expected them to, but there's still some key components there for success there. I think they're going to show that in this game because, looking at Young Americans Christian Academy, they're giving up a ton of points in every game. And so I think that Unity's going to get out there and take advantage of the porous defense and score a bunch of points in this game. So, Unity.
Gotcha. All of this and more Friday night, PrepCentralOnline.com. We'll have live scoring updates from the key games from the Northwest Georgia region. Later on in the evening, we'll have articles, photos, videos talking about who won, who didn't. And of course, on the Gridiron Central Scoreboard Show, we'll break that down even further, giving some analysis behind everything, see who's in great shape for the playoffs, who still needs to win. And of course, next week, we'll have the next preview show. Until then, for Kevin Myrick and Matt Davis, I'm Jim Alred saying we'll see you on the sidelines. Boom.